The Assembly will come to order. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod, Assemblywoman Black, Assemblywoman Brown May, Assemblywoman Carlton, Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblywoman Duran, Assemblyman Ellison, Assemblyman Flores, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Gorlow, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Hanson, Assemblywoman Hardy, Assemblywoman Howdigi, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblywoman Krasner, Assemblyman Levitt, Assemblywoman Martinez, Assemblywoman Marzola, Assemblyman Matthews, Assemblyman MacArthur, Assemblywoman Brittany Miller, Assemblyman C.H. Miller, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, Assemblywoman Wynn, Assemblyman O'Neill, Assemblyman Orentlicker, Assemblywoman Peters, Assemblyman Roberts, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Titus, Assemblywoman Tolles, Assemblywoman Torres, Assemblyman Watts, Assemblyman Wheeler, Assemblyman Yeager, Speaker Frierson.
Here, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect that all members are present.
The record shall so reflect. There is a quorum. The Assembly will please rise for the prayer by President Rajan Zed of the Universal Society of Hinduism in Reno. I would invite members, as I know President Zed would, if he were here in person, to join him in closing the prayer with Om, if you so choose.
Om Bhurvubah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Samniva Akuti, Samna Hirdaniva, Samnamastu Vo Mano Yathava Susahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts, may your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Niyatam Kuru Karma, Tvam Karma, Jaya Hya Karmana, Srira Yatra Pichatena Prasiddhyed Karmana, Yagnarthat Karmanao, Nyatra Lokoyam, Karma Bandhana, Tadartham Karma Kauntaya, Mukta Sang Samachara. Fulfill all your duties. Action is better than inaction. Even to maintain your body, you are obliged to act. Selfish action imprisons the world. Act selflessly without any thought of personal profit. Yate tanu vachi pratishta ya srotre ya cha chaksusi ya cha manasi santata sivam tam kuru mot krami. Be kind to us with your invisible form, which dwells in the voice, the eye, and the ear, and pervades the mind. Abandon us not. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Order business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Monday, March
Mr. Speaker.
22nd.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Speaker and Chief Clerk to make necessary corrections or additions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We go to order business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, March 22nd, 2021. To the Honorable the Assembly, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed Senate Bill 25, and I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed as submitted Senate Bill 103, and I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day concurred in Assembly Amendment 21 to Senate Bill 83. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Go to order business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Assembly Joint Resolution 14, introduced by Assemblywoman Titus, proposing to amend the Nevada Constitution to revise provisions relating to elections involving incumbent justices or judges who are unopposed.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to refer AJR 14 to your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Without objection, so referred.
Notice of exemption, March 22nd, 2021. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the exemption of Assembly Bill 309. Sarah Kaufman, Fiscal Analysis Division. Notice of exemption, March 23rd, 2021. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Assembly Bills 262, 300, 310, 356, and 373. Sarah Kaufman, Fiscal Analysis Division.
Go to Order Business 9, Introduction, First Reading, and Reference Bills.
Assembly Bill 377, introduced by Assemblywoman Biederam, an act relating to telecommunication service requiring the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to establish a program to assist certain persons with low income in obtaining access to broadband services, establishing certain requirements for the program, providing for reimbursements to certain providers of telephone services for the reduction in rates for telephone services under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 378, introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources, an act relating to public lands, revising the purpose of the State Land Office, eliminating provisions relating to the state, providing land use planning assistance in areas of critical environmental concern, revising provisions relating to the duties of the State Land Use Planning Agency, repealing various provisions relating to public lands, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 379, introduced by Assemblyman C.H. Miller, an act relating to motor vehicles, removing provisions governing the issuance and display of license plate decals evidencing the current registration of a motor vehicle, removing the requirement for a license plate to display the month and year the vehicle registration expires, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 380, introduced by Assemblywoman Leslie Cohen, an act relating to public utilities, declaring the policy of the state concerning statewide reductions in net greenhouse gas emissions, requiring a gas utility to submit at certain times an infrastructure supply and alternatives plan, allowing for accelerated cost recovery for certain infrastructure replacement projects, requiring the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to convene a public hearing on the plan and to comply with certain requirements for such a hearing, requiring that all prudent and reasonable expenditures made by a gas utility to develop the plan be recovered from rates charged to the customers of the gas utility, requiring the Commission to open an investigatory docket to examine the role of gas utilities in assisting the state in achieving its goal of reducing net greenhouse gas emissions, requiring the Commission to prepare a report for the investigatory docket and transmit the report to the next regularly scheduled legislative session, repealing provisions authorizing the public natural gas utility to expand its infrastructure in certain situations, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 381, introduced by Assemblywoman Alexis Hansen, an act making an appropriation to the Humboldt County Hospital District for the purchase of equipment for emergency medical services, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 382, introduced by Assemblyman Watts et al., an act relating to student education loans, providing for the licensing and regulation of student loan servicers by the Commissioner of Financial Institutions, authorizing and requiring the student loan ombudsman to perform certain acts, providing for the regulation of private education loans and private education lenders by the Commissioner, requiring the Commissioner to adopt certain regulations establishing certain duties and prohibitions applicable to post-secondary educational institutions and post-secondary vocational institutions, requiring the Commission on Post-Secondary Education to adopt certain standards concerning post-secondary vocational institutions, prohibiting the Commission from delegating certain duties, providing penalty, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 383, introduced by Assemblyman Watts et al., an act relating to energy, requiring the Director of the Office of Energy to adopt standards of energy efficiency for certain appliances, prohibiting the sale, lease, rental, or installation of certain new appliances that are not in compliance with energy efficiency standards, authorizing the Director to adopt standards of energy efficiency for certain additional appliances, requiring a manufacturer to obtain a certification for certain appliances prior to sale, authorizing the Director to take certain actions to investigate possible violations, establishing a civil penalty for violations, authorizing the adoption of appliance standards to facilitate the implementation of flexible demand technology, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 384, introduced by Assemblywomen Torres et al., an act relating to the Nevada System of Higher Education, authorizing the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada to provide for the development of a climate survey on sexual misconduct, and require the institutions within the system to administer the survey to to its students, authorizing the imposition of additional requirements for the grievance process for sexual misconduct at an institution within the system, authorizing the Board of Regents to require each institution within the system to adopt a policy on sexual misconduct, enter into a memorandum of understanding with certain organizations and designated victims advocate, prohibiting an institution within the system from imposing certain sanctions on certain students, authorizing the Board of Regents to require an institution within the system to take certain actions regarding a report of an alleged incident of sexual misconduct, providing for certain training and programming relating to sexual misconduct, authorizing the Board of Regents to require a report from institutions within the system on certain information relating to sexual misconduct, authorizing the Board of Regents to impose a fine in certain circumstances, authorizing the Board of Regents to adopt regulations and providing other matters properly thereto. Assembly Bill 385, introduced by Assemblywomen Benitez, Thompson, and Brittany Miller, an act relating to public employment, prohibiting the officers and employees of certain public bodies from receiving certain payments or benefits upon termination of employment, establishing the maximum allowed salaries for officers and employees of certain public bodies, including merit-based salary increases and allowances for transportation in the calculation of such an officer or employee's salary for certain purposes, and providing other matters properly thereto. Assembly Bill 386, introduced by Assemblyman Hafen, an act relating to emergency medical services, ratifying the recognition of emergency medical services personal licensure interstate compact and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 387, introduced by Assemblyman Monroe Moreno et al., an act relating to midwives, establishing the Board of Licensed Certified Professional Midwives and requiring the Board to adopt certain regulations requiring the Division of Public and Behavioral Health of the Department of Health and Human Services to perform certain tasks relating to the regulation of licensed certified professional midwives, providing for the licensure of licensed certified professional midwives and the issuance of permits to student midwives, authorizing a licensed certified professional midwife to utilize a birth assistant under certain circumstances, prescribing requirements relating to the practice of midwifery, authorizing a licensed certified professional midwife to possess, administer, and order certain drugs, devices, chemicals, and solutions, exempting a licensed certified professional midwife and other providers of healthcare from certain liability, requiring Medicaid to cover the services of a licensed certified professional midwife, providing penalty, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 388, introduced by Assemblyman C.H. Miller and Duran, an act relating to telecommunication service, requiring the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to establish a program to assist certain persons with low income in obtaining access to broadband services, establishing certain requirements for the program, providing for reimbursements to certain providers of telephone services for the reduction in rates for telephone services under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 25, introduced by the Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, an act relating to taxation, revising provisions governing the determination of whether food for human consumption is subject to sales and use taxes, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 103, introduced by Senators Scheibel et al., an act relating to insurance, prohibiting certain insurers from discriminating based on the breed of dog at an applicable property, and providing other matters properly in there too.
Assemblywoman Benitez, Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 377 through Assembly Bill 388 and Senate Bill 25 and Senate Bill 103 be referred to the committees as shown on Assembly Bill introductions dated March 23rd, 2001, of which all members have a copy of on their desk.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go to Order of Business 12, General File, and third reading.
Assembly Bill 1, introduced by the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, an act relating to the legislature, revising provisions relating to the training required for newly elected legislators, and providing other matters properly in there too. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 1 revises the training required for newly elected legislators to also include a discussion of local governments in Nevada. The discussion must include overviews of the structure and authority of local governments, the financial administration of local governments, and the services provided by local governments. The measure is effective on January 1st, 2022, and I would just add, with all the control that we have as legislators over local governments, I think it's critical that we all understand how they work. Thank you so much.
Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority, I declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 57, introduced by the Committee on Education, an act relating to education requiring that in pupil growth account for 0% of certain teacher and administrator evaluations through the 2022-2023 school year, requiring that pupil growth account for 15% of certain teacher and administrator evaluations beginning with the 2023-2024 school year, temporarily suspending the requirement to develop learning goals for pupils to measure pupil growth, clarifying that pupil growth accounts for 0% of certain teacher and administrator evaluations for the entirety of the 2020-2021 school year, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 57 suspends until the school year 2023 to 2024 the current requirement that pupil growth account for 15% of the evaluation of a teacher or administrator who provides direct instructional services to pupils. Mr. Speaker, order business 15.
Order business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of AB 57. At this time, I want to recognize and thank every educator that has worked to ensure that Nevada students receive a quality education during unprecedented times. I know that educators will continue to be evaluated, as they always have, during this time while this is in place. And I urge your support of this legislation.
Further remarks, Assemblywoman Toles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for her comments, and I want to thank the sponsor of this bill for bringing this bill forward. I certainly want to acknowledge how hard our teachers have worked and our students as well, and how difficult this past year has been. I remember myself as I transitioned to teaching online as a result of COVID, bursting into tears after the first time that I taught my students. And I certainly appreciate the request for the grace period on the teacher evaluations based on pupil growth, and I do support that. But with schools reopening and efforts to get our students back, we just feel that extending it to 2023 is just 1 year too long. If it does get amended on the other side and comes back, I'd gladly concur. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order business 15.
Order business 15.
I rise in support of AB 57. As has already been stated, educator stress is at an all-time high. All-time high. There are so many educators that are trying to balance in-person, online, hybrid, visiting classroom, or visiting homes even. And we realize that next year, when we have a new normal, it will continue. Our students next year will be learning a brand new world. As educators, we will be learning a brand new world. We will continue to be evaluated in the same fashion, with communication with our administrators, with communication with our professional learning communities. The process of the SLOs and SLGs, however, are very difficult and time-consuming. They take away the ability to take a risk. They take away the ability to look at a student and say, you're not getting it. Let me try this way. Because it's so set with how the data is used. Allowing this to be paused for 2 school years. Next year, which will be the time of learning, the following year, allows us time to figure out how we help our students grow socially, emotionally, and the essential skills that are not always based upon a random test. In closing, I ask that you listen to the teachers. I ask that you respect our role as educators, and I ask that you vote yes on AB 57. Thank you.
Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 26 ayes, 16 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority declared passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 150, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to special license plates, revising provisions governing certain terminations and suspensions of certain special license plates, revising provisions governing certain fees collected by the Department of Motor Vehicles on behalf of certain charitable organizations, and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 8, end of Section 8, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblyman Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 150 requires the Department of Motor Vehicles to inform charitable organizations of the corrective actions they must take to end the suspension of the production and distribution of a special license plate and the collection of fees on behalf of that organization if such a suspension is warranted due to the organization's failure to comply with certain laws. If a charitable organization does not take corrective action, or if the department does not terminate the suspension after a charitable organization has taken corrective actions, the department may either terminate the production and distribution of the special license plate and terminate the collection of the additional fees collected on behalf of that organization, or distribute the additional fees to a different charitable organization that meets certain requirements.
Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the room. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority declared passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 29, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to motor vehicles, authorizing the Department of Motor Vehicles to appoint an agent to issue salvage titles, authorizing such an agent to use the name, service marks, trademarks, or logo of the department in an advertisement upon receipt of the department's written permission for such use, and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 29 allows the Department of Motor Vehicles to enter into contracts appointing a person to act as its agent in the issuance of salvage titles and the collection of statutory fees, provided the person meets certain qualifications. Qualifications include a background check and posting of a bond not less than $50,000. The department may conduct audits and investigations of such agents as it deems necessary. This bill is effective on October 1, 2021. The bill requires a 2/3 majority vote due to the fees associated with the background check.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate. Now go to order business 15, remarks. Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in celebration of Conservation Lobby Week here at the legislature. Normally, this would look different, with citizen conservation advocates throughout the building advocating for our land, water, air, and wildlife. Of course, we've had to make some adjustments, and so we've got folks setting up video meetings with legislators, as well as holding evening digital town halls throughout the week. This week, they'll be advocating on a number of issues and measures before us, and as the chair of the Natural Resources Committee and the Nevada lead for the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators, it's important to me. It's something I'm passionate about, and as a child who grew up with asthma, as somebody whose father is dealing with emphysema, these issues are personal. Working to reduce pollution in our environment is critical. As a person of color who also enjoys going outdoors, I think it's critical that we make sure that we can get people access to the great things that our state has to offer. I'm particularly excited about this year's focus, which is increased emphasis on environmental justice, ensuring that historically marginalized communities can enjoy greater access to outdoor recreation, less exposure to pollution, and greater opportunities in our clean energy economy. We stand committed to protect our public lands, to preserve our precious water resources, and reduce our emissions in alignment with the new state climate strategy, and welcome the advocates participating in Conservation Lobby Week who are helping to make that happen. Thank you.
Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would be remiss on this last week of Women's History Month if I did not recognize and honor two very special women. The first is my daughter Isabella, who we fondly refer to as Izzy. This young woman turned 14 on Sunday, and I'm proud of the woman that she's become and will continue to grow to be. She will be entering high school next year and is a great example to her friends and her sisters. The second is my mother, Peggy Levitt. She's been a true inspiration to so many. She has broken through so many barriers as she served as the director of the Southern Nevada Children's Home in Boulder City, later moving to Child Haven in Clark County, serving as the manager. She was beloved at Child Haven by her colleagues and superiors, and they even named Peggy's Attic in her honor. Her service to her community further took her to become a member of the Boulder City Council. And even in retirement, she dedicates her time, talents to serving the Senior Center in Boulder City and continues to mentor others. I am so honored to have these two wonderful women in my life, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to honor them today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15?
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. I, too, rise today in recognition of Conservation Lobby Day in the Nevada Legislature. Today is the day for us to show our appreciation for the impact of the conservation movement and to recognize the work that volunteers, advocates, and our colleagues in this chamber have done to protect and preserve our natural resources in this state. We know the need for conservation should not be necessitated by current issues, but the issues of generations beyond our time. I think about this every day. As a mother, I fight to ensure that my children's children can enjoy Nevada the way we have, but we must act now. I am proud to stand among fellow conservation advocates within this chamber who have put forth legislation to make sure our state, or to make our state a champion of sustainability and the preservation of our natural resources. Beyond this chamber and the borders of our beloved home state, we have conservation champions at a national level, including the new Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland. Secretary Haaland made history as the first Indigenous woman to serve as Interior Secretary, and no doubt will continue to make history with the conservation work her agency will do. Local, state, and national collaboration is needed to preserve our natural lands so they belong to no one individual, but to all of us for generations to come. And it doesn't stop at policy. I urge my colleagues to consider how your actions and decisions affect the abundant natural resources within not just Nevada, but within our world. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Howdiggy.
Order of Business 15, Mr. Speaker.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. I rise today in solidarity with the victims and community of Boulder, Colorado. Yesterday, another community suffered a senseless act of gun violence, which left a multitude of victims. Victims of gunshots, victims of fear, victims of communities that have given an indifferent shrug to the cries for help to stop gun violence. It is time for us to look within ourselves and ask, what more can we do, given our unique position as legislators, to put a stop to these senseless acts? I implore my colleagues to look at the policies that will come before this body, remove our political glasses, and judge the policies with our minds and hearts. Doing anything else is just another indifferent shrug. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Other order of business 15, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seeing no other business before the body, I would move that the Assembly stand adjourned until Wednesday, March 24th at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.